Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Frustrated with the federal carbon tax, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he's going to declare non-confidence in the Trudeau government. Alberta's Utilities and Affordability Minister Nathan Neudorf joins us to discuss our province's electricity rates. And officials with Parks Canada say when you visit Waterton Lakes National Park, you can leave your canoe and kayak at home. We will explain why.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The federal Conservatives forced a vote on the carbon tax, which is set to increase by 23% on April the 1st, to echo the concerns of 7 provincial premiers who've been calling on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to axe the carbon tax hike. But in the end, the motion was voted down by the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc Québécois. The Liberals said it was not a free vote, so MPs had to fall in line with their party's wishes. The federal government appears to hold firm that there must be a price on carbon and that most Canadians will be compensated with government rebates to help offset the increase in the carbon tax. Franco Terrazzano is the federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. He joins us now from Ottawa to discuss the upcoming increase of 23% of the federal carbon tax. Franco, how much more will this hurt Canadians?
So after the hike, the carbon tax will cost about 17 cents a liter of gasoline, 21 cents per liter of diesel, and 15 cents per cubic meter of natural gas. So the carbon tax and the increase will make your life more expensive, and it'll make the necessities of your life more expensive. So it'll make it more expensive for you to fuel up your car to get to work, make it more expensive for you to keep your home warm, and make it more expensive for you to buy groceries. And in fact, the carbon tax will cost the average family up to $900 more than what they get back in rebates, and that is from the Parliamentary Budget Officer.
Now, we've all heard the expression, read the room, right? How is it that the federal government could be so out of touch with the majority of Canadians? Also, 7 in 10 premiers are against the increase in the carbon tax.
Oh, it is such a tone-deaf tax hike. Now, Canadians have been loud and clear. The vast majority of Canadians across every province and every demographic are against the carbon tax increase. I mean, the Canadians are standing together, and we are sick and tired of the federal government making our lives more expensive with the carbon tax. And you know what? Like, outside of Ottawa, this is a nonpartisan issue. You have political parties in the legislatures all across Canada calling on Trudeau to stop his carbon tax hike. I mean, you even have the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador publicly calling on Trudeau to not raise the carbon tax on April 1. But not only that, like, you have the former BC Liberal Party, the one that brought in their carbon tax originally, that is speaking out against carbon tax hikes. And you even have NDP leaders in Alberta who are speaking out against the carbon tax. So, outside of Ottawa, opposition to the carbon tax is a nonpartisan issue because politicians provincially understand that their constituents and Canadians can't afford another carbon tax hike.
Thanks so much for your time today, Franco. That was Franco Terrazzano, federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Ottawa. Pierre Poilievre is making plans to try and topple the Trudeau government. The Conservative leader says his party will move a motion to declare non-confidence in the Liberal government this week and call for a carbon tax election. Poilievre says it's very important to send a message to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that Canadians simply cannot afford the carbon tax and enough is enough.
The good news is Canadians are good and decent people. They do not have to live like this. They should not have to give up on the things that we all used to take for granted, like affordable food and homes, all for the ego and incompetence of one man. Life was not like this before Justin Trudeau. It will not be like this after he is gone. We're going to replace the hurt he has caused with the hope that Canadians need. Today, I am announcing that I'm giving Trudeau one last chance to spike his hike. One last chance and only one more day. Today, I'm announcing that if Trudeau does not declare today an end to his forthcoming tax increases on food, gas, and heat, that we will introduce a motion of non-confidence in the Prime Minister. It will read that the House declare non-confidence in the Prime Minister and his costly government for increasing the carbon tax by 23% on April 1st as part of his plan to quadruple the tax while Canadians cannot afford to eat, heat, and house themselves, and call for the House to be dissolved so Canadians can vote in a carbon tax election.
Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachel Thomas rose in the House of Commons expressing her concerns with the federal carbon tax. She says the levy continues to hurt so many Albertans, including business owners right here in Lethbridge.
Last year in my riding, Kolk Farms, a local producer, was forced to pay $62,000 just in carbon tax on his natural gas alone. That's $62,000. And what this Liberal NDP government doesn't understand, because it is so out of touch, is that when Canadians go to the grocery store, they pick up that bill when they go to buy groceries for their families. Canadians are already struggling, and now on April 1st, they're going to face another increase of 23%.
I'd like to say to the member opposite, I want a reminder of the rural top-up coming to the carbon rebate. So a family of four in Alberta is going to see $2,160. A family in my riding is going to see $1,430 when they live in a rural area. My friends, we know what it's like. That's why we're there to help people with the carbon rebate. That's why we're there to help with the childcare benefit. That's why we're there to help with housing. We're there to help Canadians, Mr. Speaker, in rural areas as well.
A Liberal MP is considering his future with the party. Anthony Housefather says he was upset that the Trudeau government didn't initially strike down the NDP motion to recognize Palestine as a state. The Jewish Canadian MP says he needs to take some time now to reflect on his future and ponder his next move with the Trudeau Liberals.
Was the amendment a better amendment than the original motion? Of course. But was it necessary to do that when I still don't agree with the contents even of the final motion? I don't think so. I think we could have just voted down an NDP Opposition Day motion easily, and that should have been, to me, the course that we took. I think it's the first time in my parliamentary career that I've had a reflection like this, where I truly felt last night that a line had been crossed. When my party members got up and cheered and gave a standing ovation to Heather McPherson and the NDP, I started reflecting as to whether or not I belonged. And I will let you know further how I feel over the coming days. For the moment, I'm still there.
Former Prime Ministers, dignitaries, and the average everyday Canadian gathered in Ottawa to pay their respects to former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. Many say they're saddened not only by the loss of one of Canada's great statesmen, but also a kinder era in Canadian politics.
Brian Mulroney changed our country. As a political leader, he had skill, he had vision, and even though as a reporter covering those days, it was always very complicated and busy and intense, it was amazing to see what he did for all of us, bringing us into the free trade agreement, changing our attitudes toward our American neighbors, giving us a sense of self and a sense of pride.
Politicians in the 80s, particularly Brian Mulroney, had ambitious vision. They wanted to achieve things. They had an agenda. Today, there's too much disruptive division. Instead of vision, you've got division, you've got polarization. And it's all about scoring points. But the country today needs much more in terms of strategic vision to get things done in terms of nation building.
He was the first prime minister I actually voted for. And I think his legacy is important, and I think that people should come and do this if they can. It's a moment in history that we, as Canadians, should be part of.
Well, the special weather statement from Environment Canada for our region continued today, and more snow is on the way. More snow is in the forecast. Jeanette Roche is now with an early peek at that forecast. Jeanette, the white stuff, however, is a welcome sight, especially by our farmers, since the moisture is so desperately needed.
Yeah, well, you got that right, Hal, because the moisture is definitely needed in the ground for the crops. So our farming friends should be happy, because the good news continues, I guess, for the next several days, as we're going to be seeing snow, periods of snow and flurries, including tonight, overnight, and then into Thursday. We're expecting 5 centimeters of the white stuff. So that -7 overnight low continuing steady through tomorrow on Thursday there. That -7 also putting us a little bit lower than the seasonal low for this time of year, which is -6. And that's pretty much what we're going to be seeing for the next week or so. I'll be back later in the show, Hal, to tell you more about what we can expect.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. An update now on a man who launched a campaign to have Calgary Mayor Jody Gondek recalled. Local business owner Landon Johnston says he now has well over 100,000 signatures collected since he launched the Recall Gondek campaign in the Stampede City. He needs over 514,000 by April the 4th in order to force the mayor from office. Johnston says many Calgarians are angry with Gondek's leadership and a number of unpopular decisions she and her council have made. They include large property tax increases, botched arena deals, and declaring a climate emergency in Alberta's most populous city. The remaining 4 cents per litre of the Alberta fuel tax and provincial fuel tax is set to return on April the 1st. That would mean that the entire 13 cents a litre will be back when you fill up at the pumps next time. Our province's Affordability and Utilities Minister Nathan Neudorf says that tax money is actually needed right now.
We also have an obligation to be fiscally responsible for the province, and to not have that tax in place is nearly $500 million of revenue for the province for much needed critical infrastructure, transportation, like roads and highways and bridges, really important that way. What's really discouraging is every time we try to take fiscal measures to lower that cost to Albertans, the federal government continues to step in and increase their taxes. And we are anticipating another big step in that federal carbon tax April 1st, not just this year, but every single April 1st between now and 2030.
Minister Neudorf will also discuss how the UCP is addressing the housing crisis here in our province. That's coming up after Business News. Post-secondaries here in Alberta have been named test centres of the NATO Defence Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic Network. As test centres, both SAIT and the University of Alberta will help entrepreneurs and innovators to develop and execute the designs of their technology or products. Officials say it will also pave the way for both universities to explore research opportunities that have both military and civilian uses.
With all of the different conflicts that we are seeing on the news every single day, this has never been more relevant or more important. And the fact is, technology is the future of defense, and technology is what is going to keep Canadians safe. So it's going to keep Albertans safe. And that is why I'm so excited to be able to join with all of you today to celebrate this announcement that the University of Alberta has been selected as a NATO Diana Test Centre. That's a really big deal.
Lethbridge police have joined other law enforcement agencies to help combat a romance investment cryptocurrency scam. Officials say during a recent workshop hosted by Calgary Police and Chain Analysis, they identified more than 770 victims of cryptocurrency fraud with a loss of close to $60 million. Of those victims, 119 were Canadian, including some right here in the province of Alberta. Sergeant Kevin Talbot, who heads up the LPS Economic Crimes Unit, offered some tips now on how to best protect yourself when involved in blockchain transactions.
Number one is don't send money to anybody you don't know. If you haven't personally met them and taken the steps to trust them, don't send money to anyone. These are typically, they're done typically online. I would say 99% of the time, the introduction to a scammer is online, whether it be a pop-up screen on the computer, somebody contacts you on their Facebook profile or Snapchat or something along those lines, or it could be a victim just is seeking out a way to invest in cryptocurrency. So if you have not met them, don't send them anything. And that goes for every online scam, regardless if cryptocurrency is involved.
Sergeant Talbot says many of the victims didn't even realize they were victims until police notified them. If you're thinking of bringing along a canoe, kayak, or windsurfboard to Waterton Lakes National Park, don't. The folks with Parks Canada say due to the threat of invasive species, including harmful mussels and whirling disease, non-motorized watercraft will not be permitted from outside of the park beginning April the 1st. Park officials explain the harm that invasive species can bring.
Because it has no natural predator here, they are very, very prolific. They spread very, very rapidly. And as such, they can, in an affected water body, they can actually filter out the greater majority of the nutrients, leaving nothing for the native species, so the ecosystem basically collapses. The native filter feeders die out quickly. those animals that rely on the filter feeders for food die out, and then all the way up the chain to the small and large fish that live in a place like that.
You'll still be able to rent watercraft on the lake since they don't leave the park. Officials also added that angling for fish will not be allowed in flowing waters such as rivers and streams inside of the park. As for fishing in the lakes, that'll continue based on current regulations. If you happen to be near the bus loop outside of the University of Lethbridge on Tuesday, you would have seen a very unusual sight. It appeared to be a splash and play day, complete with an above-ground pool and a hot tub, but it was all for a great cause. Dozens of students participated in the Chillin' for Charity event hosted by the Dillon School of Business. The event focused on raising funds for United Way Lethbridge in southwestern Alberta. Although the annual event was not new, there was a new twist this year.
The big change this year, and I think we're going to continue kind of going in that direction, was an ice bath challenge. And winners got prizes for the longest 3 times they spent in the ice bath. And I was really impressed because the longest time was about 17 minutes and 15 seconds. It was crazy. We're a student association, but we really focus on trying to fundraise and try to help out our community. And United Way is a great local charity that really helps less fortunate individuals in our community.
The money that's raised goes directly to United Way to help support community reinvestment into human service programs. We're actually opening our grant process right now, so charitable organizations can apply, and our grant application closes at the end of this month.
Over the past 3 years, grants from United Way's Community Fund have supported the local food banks, Big Brothers and Big Sisters here in Lethbridge, Chinook Sexual Assault Centre, New West Theatre, Woods Homes, and many others. 2 new reports by the Auditor General paint a very bleak picture of Ottawa's record on First Nations housing and policing. Karen Hogan says the Trudeau government needs to change its approach in helping our Indigenous peoples.
This is the 4th year since 2003 that we are raising the alarm about unsafe and unsuitable housing in First Nations communities. Adequate housing is a basic human need. After 4 audit reports, I can honestly say that I am completely discouraged that so little has changed and that so many First Nations individuals and families continue to live in substandard homes. Time after time, whether in housing, policing, safe drinking water, or other critical areas, our audits of federal programs to support Canada's Indigenous peoples reveals a distressing and persistent pattern of failure.
In responding to the Auditor General's reports, Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu says changing a colonial system overnight is not easy. Stats Canada says more than 15% of around 4.5 million seniors who visited medical specialists, got tests, or had non-emergency surgeries had problems accessing those services. The survey covered the years 2019 and 2020. The study said issues range from trouble getting a referral or an appointment to much longer wait times. The government of Newfoundland and Labrador delayed today's budget until further notice due to an unsafe environment. A shouting crowd of around 100 people blocked government staff from entering the legislature in St. John's earlier today as part of an ongoing fisheries protest. The protesters say the province's fishery is overregulated and that a handful of established processors and buyers are acting like a cartel and pushing down prices.
We're all here because basically the government has have us backed into a corner here, and we're trying to go fishing, but there's only 4 or 5 buyers here in Newfoundland now that are acting like a cartel, and we're not getting good prices. The government won't allow other buyers to come in. They won't issue any new licenses, and they're protecting these millionaire merchants that while all the rest of us are really struggling. So we're all here today to try to change government policy and make sure there's competition comes to Newfoundland. We're able to ship product into other provinces like everyone else can do, and we just want to get paid fairly. And for 500 years, I think the fishermen in Newfoundland have been getting slighted, and I think it's time that they finally stood up and did something about it.
South of the border, meanwhile, in Ohio's Republican Senate primary, Trump-backed businessman Bernie Moreno defeated 2 challengers. Moreno is now set to face Ohio incumbent Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown in the November general election.
I wear with honor my endorsement from President Trump. I wear that with a badge of honor. Because under President Trump, Under President Trump, this nation was safer. It was more secure. We had prosperity around the world. We had generationally low interest rates, and we had generationally low inflation. Under Joe Biden, everything is objectively worse. Here's what I wonder. I wonder whether Sherrod Brown is going to wear with honor his 99% voting record with Joe Biden. Whether Joe Biden is the kind of person that he likes to associate with, because I would predict this. If Joe Biden enters Ohio, Sherrod Brown's going to fly out of here like a scared cat.
The owner of an alligator that was recently taken by conservation officers in New York is fighting for its return. The man says his 34-year-old 750-pound gator named Albert is his emotional support animal and is a gentle giant that is no danger to anyone.
What do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
Get that man a dog. Wow. Well, we saw lots of cloud cover and some light flurries across much of southwestern Alberta again today, and that trend should continue over the next few days. Full weather details are coming up. Well, it was a little chilly today in Lethbridge. We saw a little bit more of the white stuff, and more of it is on the way, which is actually good news for our farming community. We need the moisture. Jeanette Roche is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, it appears as though we could be seeing more of the white stuff as the special weather statement from Environment Canada continued for our region.
Well, yeah, Hal, we are expecting approximately 5 centimeters of snow on Thursday. We're seeing that snow begin this evening. Tomorrow, that temperature steady right through -7. We get down to -8 by Friday. Friday, expecting more snow. We could see up to 10 centimeters by Friday evening. As we look to the weekend, too, -7 on Saturday, -8 for the high on Sunday. Expecting flurries and periods of snow throughout the weekend. By the time we get to Monday, we're seeing 30% chance of flurries, -3 for a high, and that's where the temperature is going to start to get more back into the seasonal range at high of 2 degrees on Tuesday. So finally putting us back into those pluses. So the average high for this time of year, 7, average low, -6. 21 was our high temperature on this day back in 1960, and in 2002 we were sitting at a chilly -30. 7:32, that's when the sun rose this morning. Sun set this evening at 7:46. We're looking at 12 hours, 14 minutes of daylight, if you can believe that. Okay, on the west coast, seeing a mix of sun and cloud and fog dissipating in the morning for both Victoria and Vancouver. Also seeing a pair of 13s on the west coast there. -5 for a high in Edmonton. Edmonton seeing periods of snow accumulating to 2 centimeters tomorrow. Calgary under a snowfall warning this evening, could see 5 to 10 centimeters tonight. Another 2 centimeters, 2 to 4 centimeters actually tomorrow. -7 for the expected high there. And of course, by Friday, they could have an accumulation of up to 30 centimeters of snow in certain areas. Okay, on for the rest of the prairies here, not as snowy, but still a little chilly, especially in the morning with the wind chill. -9 for a high in Saskatoon. Regina looking at a 60% chance of flurries, -6 for a high there. And the expected high tomorrow in Winnipeg is -5, with clear skies. Still expecting fairly chilly conditions in the morning, though, with those wind chill values that are still pushing them into the -24 range. Okay, Toronto tomorrow looking at 0 for a high. Ottawa seeing a 40% chance of flurries, -3 for the high there. -3 as well in Montreal, as we're seeing partly cloudy skies. As we get to the east coast, this is where we're seeing a lot of mixed rain and snow together. So 3 for a high in Fredericton. Fredericton expecting 2 centimeters of snow and 2 millimeters of rain. So 2 and 2 there. Halifax looking at a high of 4 degrees, 5 to 10 millimeters of rain mixed with a 60% chance of flurries. 4 for a high in Charlottetown tomorrow. We've got rain mixed with snow there as well, about 5 millimeters of rain. And then St. John's also seeing a mix of rain and snow with a high of 5 degrees. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
A Dubai sovereign wealth fund that's the single largest shareholder of the Nasdaq Stock Exchange plans to sell a third of its shares in the exchange. It's a deal potentially worth $1.6 billion that saw the value of the firm fall in aftermarket trading. The announcement from Bourse Dubai, owned by the Investment Corps of Dubai, would make it the second largest holder in the tech-heavy Nasdaq, which is one of the 3 main indexes in the United States. Boris Dubai says the sale would improve its liquidity. A judge has denied Apple's motion to dismiss a class action lawsuit claiming that stalkers are using its AirTag devices to track victims. The lawsuit argues the tech giant hasn't done enough to prevent the tracking devices from being misused. Apple was sued in December of 2022 by dozens of plaintiffs who said they were stalked by AirTag users. The company attempted to dismiss the litigation in a filing last year, but a San Francisco-based judge has ruled that claims from 3 plaintiffs can move forward. A former Winnipeg UPS employee is being accused of stealing $1.3 million US worth of Apple products and reselling them on Kijiji. The province's director of criminal property forfeiture made the allegations in a statement of claim filed in court last week. It says an investigation began when UPS noticed packages destined for Thunder Bay were missing. Police laid several charges against the employee back in January. The province's director of criminal property forfeiture was also granted a court order to confiscate funds in the accused's bank account, also to seize his car and even his home. Now here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 185 points on the day to finish at 22,045. The Dow was up 401 points to 39,512. The S&P 500 was up 46 on the day to 5224, and the Nasdaq was up 202 points to 16,369. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.79 to 81.68 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 4 cents to $1.70 US. Gold was up 28.80 on the day to 21.8639 US an ounce, and silver was up 67 cents to 25.58 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.27 per bushel, barley's at $6.40, canola's at $14.20, and corn is at $8.03 per bushel. Live cattle April contract was down 25 cents to 187.80. Feeder cattle were down 43 cents to 250.25, and lean hogs April contract was down 53 cents to 85.30. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 74.12 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Pierre Poilievre is making plans to try and topple the Trudeau government. The Conservative leader says his party will move a motion to declare non-confidence in the Liberal government this week and call for a carbon tax election. Poilievre says it's important to send a message to the Prime Minister that Canadians simply cannot afford the carbon tax and that most pay more than what they receive back in rebates. Coming up, a special one-on-one interview with Alberta's Affordability and Utilities Minister Nathan Neudorf. He explains why the full provincial fuel tax is back, and he also says electricity rates are coming down. He'll share more details with us in just a moment. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website anytime to see a number of local stories and interviews. So many Albertans have been shocked a little bit when they open their utility bills. Many are well over $500 a month, especially this past winter. Is there perhaps a cap the province could potentially look at to help give Albertans a little more of a break? Joining us now to discuss this is Alberta's Utilities and Affordability Minister Nathan Neudorf, joining us here from the Windy City. Nathan, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Great to be with you, Hal. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Now, is there any potential talk of a cap on those electricity rates? I mean, they've been quite high in the past.
Well, we did a cap and deferral system last winter, and we're still continuing through that. But what we're seeing now, since the peak last August, is actually the RO rate, the regulated rate option, continues to go down until right now. In fact, we're down to nearly 10 cents a kilowatt hour, which is getting close to our historical average. And year over year, from this February to last February, we're down over 40% on average cost. So we are seeing that cost come down, and we are now focused on structural changes within our market to make sure that we stay in that affordable range for all Albertans, as well as looking at transmission, distribution, and other retail costs to keep that cost down.
You know, perhaps maybe I got to talk to my utility provider because I think I'm being gouged right now. Now, Nathan, we recently had Chris Sims, Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, on our program. She says she's a little disappointed that the province is bringing back the remaining 4 cents per litre of the provincial fuel tax, bringing us back up to 13 cents a litre. Why bring it back now when Albertans are still hurting? I mean, we have high inflation, mortgages still up, rent, food prices are still quite high, not to mention the price of gas.
Yeah, we do understand that, but we also have an obligation to be fiscally responsible for the province. And to not have that tax in place is nearly $500 million of revenue for the province for much needed critical infrastructure, transportation, like roads and highways and bridges. Really important that way. What's really discouraging is every time we try to take fiscal measures to lower that cost to Albertans, the federal government continues to step in and increase their taxes. And we are anticipating another big step in that federal carbon tax April 1st, not just this year, but every single April 1st between now and 2030. That's what's really crippling. That's what's really hurting Albertans. It's hurting all Canadians. And while we're trying to keep our fiscal house in order and do the responsible thing, it's very troubling that the federal Liberals and the federal NDP continue to work against Alberta's best interests.
Yeah, the discussion, of course, with the carbon tax increasing 23% on April the 1st. But let's talk about how it's not just impacting us at the pumps and, of course, with our home heating, but hurting our farmers and our truckers as well, people who bring the food to our tables.
Absolutely. It really hurts. Many people don't realize that our farmers and ranchers use natural gas to dry grains and dry food. They use it to process the beef and pork and chicken and other food products that we utilize. And they have to pass that cost on to their purchasers, which are grocery stores. And they have to pass it on yet again to us as consumers. It's a layered tax. It's a tax on a tax on a tax. We see it hitting our most vulnerable sector in our seniors and those who are on fixed incomes. That tax increase is extremely punitive to them. We see it impacting our schools, our school divisions, and our hospitals, our libraries, all of our public buildings. They're faced with that tax as well. So that's your tax dollars being taxed again by the federal government. It's very difficult for every Albertan. It's very difficult for every Canadian. And that's why we continue to stand up for Albertans, trying to get our economy strengthened to the point where it's not quite as crippling as it is in other areas of the country.
Now, Premier Danielle Smith recently posted on her Facebook page that Alberta may double its oil and gas production while being carbon neutral by the year 2050. That was the message she delivered to investors in Houston recently, Nathan. Now, I thought Alberta was going to focus more on investing in the Alberta Heritage Savings Trust Fund and maybe less in the energy sector basket.
Absolutely, we are. We are making sure that we put money away for that Heritage Savings Trust Fund for generations. So we have truly a sovereign wealth fund. Our projections are for the actions that we've taken just by reinvesting the interest. We could see that fund over $200 billion of value by 2050. Now, we do want to see our economies continue to grow. That includes in the oil and gas sector, but also for hydrogen, blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, different products out of that as we diversify our economy there. That has a knock-on effect to our rail and trucking industries. We are a carbon hub here in Alberta. We look forward to further investments there. So we want to see our economy continue to grow in diversity, grow in the additional add-on values. And we think that we can do both for Albertans' benefit in the years ahead.
What do you say to those people who believe we're not doing enough to support our renewable energy sector, the green energy sector, including more wind and solar farm initiatives?
Well, the facts would say something different. In fact, in 2023, Alberta led all provinces in Canada with the largest amount of growth. Somewhere between 75 and 92% of all renewable investment and development happened within the province of Alberta. So we are leading the country in growth. We are second only to Ontario in overall renewable development. And while we've set some new parameters and responsibilities for that industry in Alberta, we continue to expect that growth to continue.
Now, you recently participated in a ministerial forum as part of the Rural Municipalities of Alberta. What were some of the bigger concerns that were raised, and how's the province addressing them?
Well, a lot of questions about where we're going with affordable housing, and I'm very proud to be on stage with Minister Jason Nixon, who is leading that. Alberta is seeing more housing starts this coming year than ever before in history. And as we increase that supply, we expect that to continue to put downward pressure onto those rental costs and mortgage costs. And that's the way that we can truly structurally address this issue. And we're really happy with our industry stepping up and helping us deliver on those new housing options for consumers.
Now, Nathan, let's talk about the lack of moisture here in our province. It's been a fairly dry winter so far. In spring, we haven't seen a lot of rain, little dusting of snow here today. What is the UCP doing to really mitigate the impact on farmers and ranchers as our reservoirs are drying up?
Yeah, it is the third or fourth year of a drought in a row. I'm very proud that our Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schultz, has done a tremendous amount of work pre-planning on how we're going to face these initiatives. She is trying to get some water to all of our users so that we can grow crops and grow livestock, as well as make sure that our cities and municipalities have water. So they're developing a lot of plans. We do have a long-term plan to increase our ability to build reservoirs, which means capture the spring runoff. That's really important. Typically, that water is just run right through our province and gone to other jurisdictions. If we're able to capture that, that will set us up in years ahead. But of course, that's a little bit longer term, and we need some water to fill those reservoirs in the first place.
You know, many Albertans are still scratching their heads as to why the province is moving forward with a police agency when we already have the RCMP. Now, it's not a provincial police force that was discussed in the past year. Now, folks with the AUPE that we chatted with, the union representing sheriffs, say they were really caught off guard by the government announcement. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that they shouldn't have been surprised. We've had a lot of requests for additional sheriff support in Calgary and Edmonton, and yes, even in Lethbridge. And this is a response to that to make sure that that body is governed in an independent way, just like our other police forces. So it's not a provincial police force. It is a strengthening of our transparency and autonomy within the governance structure for policing. And we look for those supports to help jurisdictions like Lethbridge, Calgary, Edmonton, and others, where they need that help because of crime in their downtown core or other issues. And we're working to help solve those problems.
Okay, let's talk about supportive housing and affordable housing once again. Your government recently announced that new permanent supportive housing units will be built with the help of the Lethbridge Housing Authority. Let's talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, we know this is a much needed area, and we are not only providing funding, we have asked industry to help out in a number of different ways. We are working with our municipalities in terms of building codes, things that wouldn't necessarily add safety, but just add red tape and cost, so we can keep that cost down. We want to make sure that everyone has a place to call home and a place to go that puts a roof over their heads. And we are seeing some of the largest investments ever in Alberta's history as we do our share in this. We continue to ask the federal government to step up and help out according to our population and our population growth. We've yet to see them truly come to the table in a meaningful way.
Nathan, we recently had an internationally trained Canadian doctor on our show by the name of Dr. Omar Kadri. He's a born and raised Albertan who received his medical training in Grenada, then trained in the United States. He's now practicing medicine in Leduc, Alberta, just outside of Edmonton. Now, Dr. Kadri told me something interesting, that Alberta could really address the doctor shortage in our province by considering more Canadian doctors who've been trained overseas. Your thoughts?
We couldn't agree more. And that's why I'm very proud to stand up with private member Nolan Dick, who brought forward the credential recognition bill just this week. And we are seeking to do more and more on recognizing those foreign credentials. I'm also very, very proud to stand with our Minister of Advanced Education, Rajan Sani, who has made an enormous investment in Lethbridge to train more medical doctors right here in Alberta and right in Lethbridge. This is a very successful program that we're adopting from Ontario and BC. It really helps to have rural trained doctors and have them stay in those jurisdictions where they're trained. So I think we're doing a both and approach, and I look forward to that really helping the needs of rural Albertans especially.
A number of court cases are being launched by those who say they were hurt during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. Many say they lost their jobs and even their businesses. They filed class action lawsuits, not just against the federal government, but also against the province, the Alberta government. Now, Nathan, you were a business owner yourself, owner of a construction company. Let's talk about how maybe you can sympathize with those who were hurt during the lockdowns. Is there any way to ensure that Albertans will never be hurt like this ever again?
Well, I can't comment on anything specific before the courts. Obviously, we know that it was a challenging time for every jurisdiction around the world, and governments approach it in different ways. We are interested to hear the outcome of some of those things, but until that's concluded, I can't really comment too much further, other than understanding the challenges that we all faced during that time.
Alberta Utilities and Affordability Minister Nathan Neudorf, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us today from Lethbridge.
Great to be here, Hal. Thank you again for the interview.
March is Multiple Myeloma Awareness Month, and today we're going to learn more about this type of cancer and what kinds of treatments and supports are available. Our guest has battled myeloma himself and is the head of the Lethbridge Myeloma Support Group. He joins us here in the windy city of Lethbridge. Brian Treadwell, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thanks, Nav. Thanks for inviting me to Bridge City News.
Great to have you on. So, Brian, can you explain to our viewers what myeloma is and how Canadians are battling this disease?
Okay, first of all, let's answer the second question first. Though classified as a rare disease, myeloma is the second most common form of blood cancer. In 2022, nearly 4,000 Canadians were diagnosed with myeloma, and currently 11 Canadians are diagnosed every day with the disease.
Wow.
Yeah. So as far as myeloma itself, and here's the medical part, and I don't want to get too medical on it, but it's a blood cancer associated with the abnormal behavior of uncontrolled growth of plasma cells. That's the white blood cell. Plasma cells are made in the spongy part of your bone, and they're an important part of your immune system because they produce the antibodies. Okay, and in myeloma, too many plasma cells are produced and they crowd out the good cells like red blood cells and platelets that our body needs to keep us healthy. And when you have numerous areas in your body affected by these growth, the disease is called multiple myeloma.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. And so what are the symptoms of myeloma then?
Okay, some of the common primary symptoms are bone pain, anemia, extreme fatigue, reoccurring infections, and kidney problems. However, anything unexplained should be referred to your doctor so he or she can refer you on to a hematologist. And those people are the ones that make the specific diagnosis.
And is there a known cure?
No, currently it's incurable. However, great strides are being made in increasing both the quality and quantity of survivability of diagnosed patients. A decade ago, the survivability was about 5 years, but now with research and new drugs and treatments, people are living 5, 10, 15, 20 years and longer past their initial diagnosis. So that's the good news.
That is some good news. And what kinds of treatments are available and which kinds of treatments seem to be having the most success?
Okay, because myeloma is, well, I'd call it a designer disease. It designs itself around you. Your medical team will decide what's the best treatment for you. It's all depending on your age and your other health factors. You may have a stem cell transplant or not. I had a stem cell transplant. And since I had a stem cell transplant, even the protocol has changed for treatment then. So treatment is always changing for the better because they find all sorts of new things, new ways of treating it. So it's an ongoing process. So I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be.
Well, I mean, so you're a myeloma survivor yourself. So can you just tell us what life with myeloma is like?
Well, as far as treatments go, what are having the most success? Stem cell transplants, CAR T therapies. Your doctor sort of gives you a designated treatment plan to put the cancer cells into remission. And that's the best possible way because it's incurable. The best place to get is to have it go into remission. And therapies evolve. Treatment works for a period of time that you're in remission. But then cancer, it's smart. It adjusts itself to those drugs and it says, okay, I'm used to it, so now I'm going to grow again. So then you become what they call relapsed. So the doctors have to go and find a new drug to go on and put you on. And you go on that for a while and go back into remission. And then the drug gets smart again, or the cancer gets smart again and says, okay, I like this. I'm going to grow again. So this dance goes on and on and on until you get back in and you run out of known drugs and you're put into what they call refractory because you're at the end of the line. So what happens then is your team has to look for drug trials, which aren't approved, by Health Canada. It's not a known, produced, but it's done at universities and specific things like that. So you hope to get on drug trials, and a lot of people are on them, and their survivability is increasing again. So it's an interesting dance. Here in Alberta, the University of Calgary has world-class researchers, and they're coming up with some great new drugs. And I have one lady in our group that's been on there for about 5 years with a trial drug, and she was initially on palliative care, and she's gone to just blossoming on this trial drug.
Wow, amazing.
She's doing really well. So that's giving some great hope.
And going back to living with myeloma, in your experience, was there pain, discomfort?
Well, for me, yours truly, I have anemia, which gives low hemoglobin. So always being tired, and that's no fun. Of late, I've been dealing with having to go in for blood transfusions, and so it's an interesting dance. I had a stem cell transplant in 2021, and there's a whole battery of tests that lead up to going through that. And your doctor has to decide whether you're a good candidate for having a stem cell transplant. It's based on age and your health factors again. Now they're treating based on that whether you have a stem cell transplant or whether you don't, and your drugs that you take are adjusted specifically for that. So as far as day-to-day life, there's good days, there's bad days, there's in-between days. So you just, as Christy Lane sang, one day at a time.
One day at a time.
Yeah.
Now, do we know anything about what causes myeloma?
That's a good question. Everybody asks what causes it. We really don't know. We really don't know. Some say the environment, others say it could be pesticides. We're not really sure. No. The cure, that's what we're after.
Absolutely. Now, are there any ethnicities or age demographics who are more susceptible to getting myeloma?
Well, the median age for diagnosis is 65, though I've heard as young as 35. Primarily, it's 70s and 80s that get diagnosed. And there's more of a prevalence for Asian and Afro-American heritage. So it can be anybody. Let's face it, it can be anybody.
And I want to go back to your experience. When you were diagnosed with myeloma, what was your reaction and how has your journey been battling this disease?
Well, it's funny. I have to give credit to my family physician. He was tired of seeing me complaining about always being tired. So he finally said, I've got to send you to Dr. Benke. And my hematologist set me up to Calgary with a battery of tests. And I went back to see him for the diagnosis. And he came in and sat down beside me and took a deep breath and said, "You have multiple myeloma." So I just went, "Okay, so what do we do next?" That's the thing. I wasn't no woes me, whatever.
It just didn't
Well,
phase you. You were just like, okay, how do we tackle this? How do we get this?
exactly. How do we get on with it and live life and adjust ourselves accordingly? I wasn't going to give up and throw in the towel or anything like that. Okay, go with the hand you're dealt.
Well, what a great attitude to have towards it as well. Now, you lead the Lethbridge Myeloma Support Group. Can you share what a typical meeting might look like?
Have you ever seen a wrestling match? No, it's catch as catch can. We do a little bit of everything. There's no formal meeting because meetings get bogged down in red tape and all sorts of stuff. We sit around in a group when we can be outside because that's the best place to be. Um, in the fact that myeloma, you're immunocompromised, so you don't want to pick up diseases from other people. In the winter months, yeah, Zoom is the preference, but we'll go to Timmy's and sit around and have coffees and things like that. But we'll go down to Henderson Park and sit around and share stories. The thing is, it's just being able to mix and mingle with people who share the same disease, and we all talk about how we react differently to the same drug. Because, as I said, it's a designer disease. We all react differently to the same drug that we're given. The side effects affect us differently.
And to what degree does myeloma affect the way one lives their lives day to day? Like, are there certain things you need to avoid? Are there certain precautions you need to take? You talked about masking and being immunocompromised.
It's frustrating because at times you can't plan things. Um, the way you adjust is the way it's individual. You'll hear a different story from each person that you talk to that has myeloma. Some are going on as if there's nothing wrong with them, and that's a great attitude, and that's good. You know, so you just have to watch what you do. We're not skydiving because it involves your bones and things like that. Some of us don't ride bicycles or do things that will cause us, that will fall off, and hurt ourselves. Or, as I said, I'm not going in the wrestling ring, and we're not doing anything like that. Um, Plans change. As I said, if you're not feeling good, it's okay to stay home. And you're when you're in doubt, talk to your doctor, talk to your medical team. They'll tell you what you should do or you shouldn't do, and talk to a dietitian if you need specific things you need to adjust for your diet and things like that.
Now, this doesn't look like it affected you based on the way you responded to being diagnosed, but is it common for depression to set in? And what advice can you offer to help prevent this from happening?
Oh, yeah. I'm an old broadcaster, so I've got almost 40 years of faking it till I make it. Okay. I can get behind the microphone and sound like I'm on top of the world. But behind and underneath, it's a completely different story. It's like a duck in the water. um, but, any life-changing thing like diagnosis like that, it's bound to change your psyche. I admit every now and then I have a little pity party, but you've got to keep a positive outlook. Absolutely. Surround yourself with positive people. Um, Read positive things, listen to positive music. Um, don't go on the internet. Oh, the internet, it's the bane of people with diseases because you get so much misinformation out there. And I'll say more about that in a moment. But the disease hasn't robbed me of my sense of humor. Maybe you haven't caught on to that, but Monty Python's, always keep on the sunny side of life.
Life
You've ever
with
seen
Brian.
the video for that? Yeah.
And any final thoughts on winning the battle against myeloma, and any final thoughts in general? You were talking about misinformation.
Yeah. I always say to anybody I talk to, if you're going to go on the internet, go to Myeloma Canada's website, myeloma.ca. That's where you're going to find the most current information about myeloma. It's been rebranded and refreshed, and it's got the most current information, research, pamphlets, YouTube videos. It's just chock full of things. It has contact information. We have over 45 support group network groups across Canada. So whether you're in Sydney, Nova Scotia, or out in Tofino, BC, or up north, you're going to find groups in your province that you can connect with, whether it be virtually on Zoom or in person, and get a hold of them. And any of the leaders will be happy to get a hold of you and talk to you on your level about where you are in your journey with myeloma, because they've been where you are. And that's the one good thing about it. We're not paid volunteers or anything like that. We're people who are living myeloma, just as you are living myeloma, if I'm talking to you as a myeloma patient.
Brian Treadwell is the leader of the Lethbridge Myeloma Support Group. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.